I know there are obviously organizational guidelines that you adhere to, but what kind of personal touch do you think you bring to development? That might be a little different next season with Bridgeport.
Good question. I think we're from an American League standpoint, there is some freedom, whether it be systematically or individual development. I think myself personally, spending a year in development in New Jersey really gave me a kind of different perspective. You know, being a head coach for such a long time, and then a couple of years as an assistant there in the NHL, and then stepping into that development role and really looking at players individually. I think as a coach, sometimes you focus so much on trying to win hockey games and how the team is playing within their structure and as a unit of five. And I think that just gave me a little more perspective on focusing on the individual, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, and just gave me some insight into that. And I think I really grew as a coach in that year or those couple years. Obviously, stepping it back as an assistant, you're in a little bit more of I think, a development role as well with individual relationships with players. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just really kind of honing in on each player, understanding, like I said, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are. And then when you evaluate them individually, whether it's through video or communication and meetings, I plan to focus on those things a little bit more, and not just be, where do you fit in, to the puzzle as far as a player on this team, I guess.
And you've worked with them before, but how how much of a comfort level is there with Lou and Chris, just with your history with them?
Oh, it's the best it could be. I mean, obviously, I've been very fortunate to work with them for a lot of years in New Jersey, and my development as a coach, the resources they gave me, all going all the way back to Trenton. I remember I took that job in May 2006 or 7 now, and 3 months later I got a call from the owner and said that you got to call Lou Lamoriello, the Devils just bought the team. And I had no idea where my coaching career was going to go from there, but I've been very blessed and fortunate. The resources they've provided me with, as far as coaches that have come down, and like I said, even in Trenton and then in the American League, and some of the guys that I've been able to work with, the Sergey Brelins, the Tommy Albalines, and the coaches that went through New Jersey. The list goes on. And then obviously being able to reconnect with them with the Islanders here has been great. So I guess the short version of that answer is there's a very good level of comfortability with them, for sure.
And are you at the point yet where you can say, who's going to be on your staff, whether Chris Terreri's coming back, who you're adding? Where are you in that process? Thanks.
Well, I can't comment on that right now, other than we got to put a staff together. As far as returning, that's stuff we're going to all evaluate. I think it's safe to say Terreri will be back, but obviously we went with a two-man system because of which we felt comfortable with. And I know Brent was really comfortable. This is something we talked about 2 years ago in my interview process, obviously with our experience, both of us having some NHL experience, and Chris and Brent both felt really comfortable with a two-man system. I think we're just going to have to really get into this pretty quick, as far as what we're going to go with as far as the staff, and assembling that, and what it's going to look like, which honestly, Andrew, we haven't even really, this has happened kind of so fast in the last couple of days. We haven't been able to dive into that, but that's probably priority number one right now.
Stephen Rosner with the Hockey News.
Hey, Rick, congratulations. Just over these last 2 years, what have you seen from this group in Bridgeport and the growth of some of these prospects?
Well, I think there's been a lot of growth in a lot of these guys. Obviously, you look at kind of what came in this year with Ishkov and Dufour were kind of new, younger prospects that first year. I think Bolduc took a big step this year. Arnie Durando, who's been around a couple more years. But I think it's a process in the American League. And I think these guys have all taken steps. I think if you look at William Dufour, he had a good year, and there's lots of room for improvement as well. And hopefully he's having a good summer, and going to try and connect with him now that this is, I've taken this position and all these guys, and just to see where they're at. But I think there's been growth for sure over the last 2 years. Obviously last year, great start as a team, not the best finish. And it's an area where we certainly want to improve on. But I think you get more young talent coming in here. I think there's no question we're going to be younger than we have been the last 2 years. And I think that's been progressive, kind of getting in some of these prospects with more coming. So again, that's something I'm really excited about is working with these young guys and helping them develop and potentially reach their goal of playing for the Islanders.
I wanted to ask you about Matthew Maggio. I know he only played 3 games with you guys when he came back, but I know after camp he went down to Bridgeport. Well, I guess what growth did you see from him in just like a year from training camp to after winning OHL Player of the Year and playing a couple of games with Bridgeport?
Well, to be honest with you, he had an unbelievable training camp. We were really impressed, and we're hoping we were going to be able to keep him. But obviously, we made the decision, which was, I think, the right decision, to let him go back and really grow in the American or in the OHL. He had a great year individually. Obviously, their team had a tough first round exit there, but and then coming back, it's so tough at the end of the year, right? Because we're fighting for our playoff lives. We're trying to get in, and these kids come in. It's still a big adjustment going from, no matter how good of a year they have in junior or college, you're coming in, you're playing against men. But his speed, his ability to score, things I saw in training camp, he wants the puck. He knows where to go on the ice, and he works to get there. And he's a competitive kid, and the biggest thing is he's a good kid. So again, another guy I'm excited to work with, and looking forward to see him at camp. He needs to improve some as far as some areas of strength physically. He's still a young kid and still developing, but for me, I'm just excited to see how these kids have grown individually over the summer, and looking forward to seeing them again at camp.
Andrew Gross, Newsday.
Hey, Rick, I was just curious what you anticipate in net. I know Lou said Corey is probably heading out to Europe to finish up his career, so that, leaves at least one opening. Do you expect Skurek back? And, who do you think might be a tandem there? Where are you in that process?
Like I said, Andrew, we haven't even got to that point yet. I can't comment on any of that. Like I said, this all has happened just in the last couple of days. So as far as lineups, signings, who's returning, I mean, I'm going to get kind of filled in on all that moving forward here.
I appreciate that. I just got to ask. Also, look, I know, everyone, one way or another, it's your job to help players get to the show, right? But I know probably as a coach, you harbor some, personal motivations as well. How does your time in the AHL and then 3 years an assistant, and now this opportunity again, what is there an NHL dream for you down the road, at this point?
Oh, no question. And especially now that I've been there and coached in the league, and it's a different athlete. It's the best league in the world. It's the best athletes in the world. So there is still a dream to get to the NHL or get back there, I guess, to put it better. But at the end of the day, I was excited to reconnect with Chris and Lou and this organization, and really liked working with Brent the last 2 years. I mean, the facility in Bridgeport is top notch. So it's really fun and enjoyable going to work, in a great environment to be in, and the staff that's been put together there is great. I think for me personally, I'm just excited to get back to being a head coach. I've learned a lot over the last 5 years, and I'm looking forward to kind of applying some of that stuff, taking over the helm as the head guy here.
I was just curious. Obviously, you go into the off season as an assistant. I don't know, like you said, this all happened quickly. How does does this blow up the rest of your summer plans?
If put it this way, summer just got a little busier than talking to Brent every couple of weeks about what our potential lineup's going to look like. So I'm sure I will be a lot busier with Alan and Chris and everybody else going through the finer details and some of the things that the assistants certainly don't have to worry about over the summer.
All right, I'll see you in September, Rick. I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
thanks,
Congrats.
Thank you.
Stephen Rosner of the Hockey News.
Hey, Rick, obviously you guys try to mimic the systems at the NHL level, and I know there wasn't that much of a difference between, Lane Lambert's system and Trotz's, but as a minor league coach and as an assistant, how much, I guess, as a mindset you guys have to focus on with these players who are used to playing one way, maybe have to make some tweaks?
Yeah, I think systematically, I think I talked about that a little bit earlier. I think there's a certain amount of freedom here. I do believe, and being in the NHL, I do believe there's an advantage to these kids, these guys coming up and not having to make too many adjustments. But I also think that as a coach, you have to kind of shape and mold your structure around what type of team you have, we made a tweak last year, 2 years ago. We changed our neutral zone, and we just had a discussion and felt that what they were doing in the NHL didn't work for us in the minors, and Chris and Lou are pretty good that way. And I just think, going into camp for me, like I said, this is, seeing what changes the Islanders may make systematically or in their structure, and then really kind of taking that in myself and with the staff and having discussions with those guys, and just finding the right fit for our team in Bridgeport, without obviously playing completely different system or style. But I do think there is that freedom to kind of mold around your team, I guess.
In regards to the forwards that were called up last year, most of them, if not all of them, were really strong defensively. Holmstrom, Durando, really strong defensively. I guess, what does that tell you when maybe the offense isn't there, but they're really understanding that part of the game? And how important isn't that defensive part was a primary focus and it paid off for them?
Well, I think at the end of the day, if you can't defend and you don't play with good habits and details, you're not going to stick in the NHL. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge for every American League coach is getting kids to buy into that. I mean, there's talent, there's ability to score, there's all that stuff. So it's a situation where you just want them to make sure they're playing the right way, and have good habits and details in their game, and that might get them in the door from an NHL standpoint, and then they can use and then their skill set and their strengths as a player that, college or junior, and then maybe in the American League, they have room to kind of grow into that.